You're in the thick of it. Your heartbeat all of a sudden starts to increase. You feel out of control. Your eyes widen, your breath shortens, and your mind starts to race. You want to get out. You have to get out, and you need to get out. You start to shake. You begin to sweat, and your heart starts beating throughout your entire body, and your thoughts move far too fast for you to keep up with. You feel threatened, in danger, and like the whole world is about to fall on top of you. You're having a panic attack. But it's okay, dear listeners, because today in this episode, we are talking about how we can manage these horrible, intense states of fight or flight. I am Sam, your host of the Air and Out podcast, and you are a wonderful listener, and we are grateful to have you here. Today, we're talking about how to manage panic attacks. Roll the intro. We mentioned that phrase, fight or flight, but what exactly does that mean? Well, it's a fear response that we've had since the beginning of time, which helps us determine what to do in a state of heightened emergency. Often it would have been when we're threatened by a dangerous animal or a situation where it's life-threatening. And our two options are either to fight or flight, which refers to fleeing from that danger. And all animals have this. It's why sheep run away from absolutely everything, because they are always in flight, and it's why some bigger, more aggressive animals choose to stand their ground and to have it out. But as some of you might be aware, we also have it too, and sometimes nowadays it seems that we get it a lot when we aren't even in that fight or flight state, or when it's not appropriate or necessary. It can come out of nowhere, and some things might trigger us to have these fight or flight responses, and oftentimes they're irrational and feel uncontrollable. Now, a panic attack can typically last between 5 and 20 minutes. Now, there are those of you out there who are fortunate enough never to have experienced one, and you might think, doesn't sound like a very long time. Well, oh my God, you lucky individual. It feels like an absolute lifetime when you are in the middle of it. It feels like it goes on forever. And now they do peak at around 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, they're not so intense, they start to wind down, but we will provide the science as to why that happens a little bit later on. And Cindy J. Aronson describes them as an overreaction to our body's normal physiological response to the perception of danger. And it can be just that, an overreaction that we have. But afterwards, it makes things pretty scary and quite limiting. If you are unfortunate to have a panic attack in the middle of a high street when you're doing your shopping, you might think twice about doing it again. You might wonder, that was absolutely terrifying. Maybe I don't want to go shopping again. And it can become very scary and quite limiting for the fear of having those panic attacks again. My experiences with panic attacks between the age of 16 to 18, I became well acquainted with them. And they're horrible. Sometimes you know when they're coming. Sometimes you've got this horrible gut feeling in your stomach. Like, I remember it was particularly bad just when I started college, and there were days where before I had woken up, I felt anxious, and I woke up and that anxiety only continued, and I thought, I can't do this, I can't. Like, and as we mentioned about that shopping analogy, there were days where I could get on the bus and I could make it to college, and then I'd have an anxiety attack before even walking through the gate. But what that created was almost a retreat into my comfort zone from that fear of having another panic attack. So I hadn't really seen this before in my mind, but it makes sense now as we're doing this episode. I would get to college, I would have a lecture, I would last till about lunch. And then sooner or later I'd last till about break. And then I wouldn't be able to get into the gates of college. And then I'd get off the bus, and then I'd wait for it to come back round, and I'd get on the bus. all the while having this horrible, anxious, dread feeling of a brewing panic attack. And it was from those original fears of having those panic attacks at college. And then I wouldn't get on the bus, and I wouldn't leave the house, and then I wouldn't leave my bedroom, all because of the fear that I was having. There are unique circumstances for everybody where patterns may exist. So a lot of mine was social. I was very socially anxious, and I didn't have any confidence. And I was working in a kitchen as a dishwasher, a washer of dishes. And it felt very hostile because there was a lot of tension between the manager and the chef, and I was located between them, and it was incredibly scary for me. But what that meant is that I just kind of endured those panic attacks. So it felt like they lasted the entirety of my shift, and it was horrible. And it was after one shift that I came back from that, and that was when my mum said, okay, something's not right. This isn't normal. This isn't how a normal teenager should be. And that's actually that's how recovery started for me. And all you want to do when you've had this reaction is, go figure, flight, flee. You want to run away. You want to get away. You want to get as far away from this problem as you can. But it's incredibly tiring. Like, the amount of energy that you use in that heightened state of fight or flight, afterwards you're absolutely drained. Like, you're a spent battery. You've used up so much energy in that fear response, that survival state, that afterwards, oh my goodness. Which is, we'll start the tips with number 1 here now. Self-care after a panic attack. You do what you have to do. If you know somebody who has had a panic attack, make sure they're comfortable. Make sure that they are resting. Make sure that they have what they need to feel better. Because, oh my goodness, afterwards, not only afterwards are you flat, but they have just been through an irrational, uncontrollable fear response, which shouldn't be happening. The likelihood is. So care for them, have a bit of compassion, but also do that for yourself. Take yourself away, go do something peaceful, go do something nourishing or enriching that you enjoy. Just settle for a while, okay? You've been through a lot, all right? Okay, so I got a little bit ahead of myself with adding that tip on to the end of that one, but we'll go back to what the structured tips were now, okay? And we're gonna start with what you can do in that very moment. It's happening, okay? And just because it's happening doesn't mean that there is nothing that you can do to either stop or mitigate the effects of it happening. You can bring yourself down, you can calm yourself down, and you can regain control over a situation where you feel absolutely hopeless. And the first one, you probably saw it coming, is breathing deeply and slowly. People often say that hyperventilating is a symptom of panic attacks. Shortness of breath, rapidity of breath, increased heart rate. Well, okay, let's work backwards from that. What is meditation? Meditation is slow, controlled, conscious breathing. Now, I'm not telling you to go sit cross-legged and clear your mind when you're having an anxiety attack or panic attack, because don't worry. But deep breaths. Whether you need to take yourself away from the situation or even if you cannot, slow, deep breaths. Control that breathing, pass that oxygen through your blood. Do it. You could try square breathing. There are innumerable methods of controlling your breath, but for the instance of this video, do square breathing. Breathe 4 seconds in, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe 4 seconds out, hold that for 4 seconds. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's just about slow, deep breathing to contrast the hyperventilating that is common with a panic attack. Another tip is engage your senses, okay? So sight, sound, taste, touch, and hearing. You might have heard this, I know that I've mentioned it, and it's a bit of a meme on the internet, but 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. It's about getting yourself out of your mind and engaging your senses. You have all these different senses. Start using them, start taking that attention away from this irrational response, and start deliberately and with intention finding those things. 5 things you can see. You heard me a second ago, you know what they are. Engage your senses in different ways to distract yourself and to then subsequently calm down from your heightened state. Like for instance, music. When we're talking about senses, music. Put on a song that you love. Put on a song that makes you calm, or one that you feel like you could really do with listening to right about now. But also about smells. Smells have a great way of breaking through the mental war that's going on. Find something that you love to smell. Go out, smell some flowers. Go lay on the grass or whatever it is. Engage your senses. Get out of your mind. Another interesting one that I learned is that if you're having a panic attack, putting a cold pack underneath your armpit stimulates your vagus nerve, and it reduces the sympathetic nervous system arousal. So that latter part is what creates the anxiety, is the sympathetic nervous system. And the techniques that we're talking about now, so the in the moment ones and all the techniques from this video, is what we can do to kind of counteract and calm down that sympathetic nervous system, because it's heightened. It is responding to something, and it is creating all this adrenaline in your blood straight to your arms and straight to your legs, and we're going to bring that down. After about 10 minutes that peaks, and then I'm almost certain it's your vagus nerve which takes over, starts to drain and alleviate all of that. But a cold pack under the armpit stimulates your vagus nerve straight. Jesus. Cold pack under the armpit, and that's what I'm getting at, right? Something else that might help is reassure yourself that it will pass. It is not permanent. We've discussed on this, and those of you who have been listening now know that it typically lasts between 5 and 20 minutes. If it's you in that situation, or if you witness somebody in that situation, you know and have the confidence to reassure either them or yourself that it will pass, and you may in that moment take some peace from that. So remember, it will pass. So I've taken to Reddit once more to hear again from real people who have been in these situations, and one person says, oddly, what helps me the most is not to fight it. I tell myself it's a panic attack. It feels unpleasant, but it's not dangerous, and just to let it do its thing until it passes. I guess kind of surrendering to it. Sometimes I picture it as an energy running through my body and coming out of my fingertips. Weird, but it helps. I guess that a panic kind of just runs out of steam. Grounding exercises help too, like touching an object and telling yourself how it feels and what colour it is, etc. So another perspective, but touching on some of the things that we have as well. Okay, so we've got another Reddit user who has also contributed something which is I found quite interesting. They say, I've also been dealing with, this was on a forum, the link will be in the bio to everything that we've mentioned. I've also been dealing with health anxiety and related panic, and I've actually found that gamifying can help the situation when I feel panic arising. Maybe this could help you too, ? First, I noticed the sensation. Me. Please don't keep that swear word in. First, I noticed the sensation, in brackets, mindfulness. Like, oh, I feel really warm. Maybe I'm lightheaded and maybe I could pass out from dehydration. Then I practice acceptance. It's not a good thing that I'm feeling this, but actually it's not a bad thing either. It's just a thing. No positive or negative quality to it at all. I think back to past times I've felt like this, but things have turned out fine. Evidence. After cycling through that a couple of times, I find I'm usually feeling better already. Then I'm in a state to play. I'll think, this is bad, and feel myself getting warmer and my heart pounding. Then I think, this isn't bad, this is just a thing that happens, but it doesn't mean anything bad. And I'll feel myself cooling down, my thoughts making the situation better, sometimes more instantly. All of a sudden I can see the direct power of my thoughts have over the situation. This has really helped me and just adds to my evidence base to help me out in future panic moments. And then I go stick my head in snow, hold an ice pack, or put my hands out the window for some fresh air, in brackets, grounding sensations. Lastly, it sucks, but so many of the sensations we are thinking must be some terrible illness or issue are normally just a symptom of anxiety. Like, of course. I find it helps to hear from other people and hear what other techniques work from other people, so I like to think that you might be able to too. Okay, so let's have a look at some lasting tools, shall we? Now, antidepressants, yes, they are one, but as was referenced in a video that is going to be in the link in the bio, 50% of people found in a study, it found that 50% of people who took antidepressants relapsed after not being on them anymore. So they are a temporary solution and may have some side effects, and they might not be for everybody, but they do work for some people. CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy, showed that only 20% of people relapsed from it after stopping it. And as we heard from Aronson earlier, I'm going to quote her again. It aims to help people learn and practice concrete tools to exert physical and, in turn, mental control over their sensations and thoughts associated with panic attacks. So, like the woman on Reddit said earlier, it's about gaining that control, and it's about gaining that mental resilience and giving yourself tools to know how to handle in your own way if this were to ever arise again. And for me, you know me, I love a quote. So from Alan Watts, we have, "No amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that is going to happen." Just kind of goes to show, like, ask yourself, what benefit does this anxiety have? Or reflect. I remember that time that I was anxious, remember that time that I had a panic attack. What was it over? Why? Was it beneficial? Did the anxiety in some way help me? And that's a tool that we can use to, bring down to size this horrible response that we might have sometimes. And Dale Carnegie says, "Fear exists only within the human mind." Something else to think about as well. For me, a couple of the tips that worked was working through the root trauma. So I was having numerous panic attacks, sometimes multiple a day, but something that really shook the ground of that was understanding where it was all coming from and addressing the root. And addressing the root took away the efficacy and almost took them away altogether. It's been years, I can't tell you how many years since I've had a panic attack, and I'm very lucky to say that I haven't, but it did come from working on it. So simultaneously to that, it was all about building resilience for me in order to overpower it. And what that looked like, it was me recognizing that this is a part of me. It doesn't own me, and I am not it. It is a part of me. And that resilience meant strengthening myself, becoming more resilient, becoming stronger to it, so that when it reared its ugly head and threatened to have another panic attack, I then had the tools to beat it into submission. And you might ask, what does that look like? How do you do that? Well, it starts by getting out of your comfort zone. We spoke about earlier how panic attacks and anxiety can have the potential to make you retreat more and more into your comfort zone. And that's exactly what it did for me. I couldn't leave the house, and I didn't leave the house for months on end. And I existed out of a room because of this fear that I had. But step by step, day by day, effort by effort, I overcame that anxiety and overpowered it because I pushed that comfort zone and I kept pushing that boundary Once you push that comfort zone a little bit, you have taken a little bit more power back for yourself. But if you're in this state, you might have some way to go. But don't be disheartened, because you deserve to be free of that panic, of panic attacks and of anxiety. You deserve to be comfortable within yourself and not be a prisoner to your comfort zone. So that concludes our episode on how to manage panic attacks. Now, don't forget, if you're not somebody who is managing panic attacks or suffers them, it doesn't mean that people around you won't. Okay, so you never know when it's going to happen. Somebody might be very close to you who has them already, or there might be somebody next week who starts having them. But this is all useful tools that you can use in order to be there for somebody, even if it's not yourself. And if it is yourself, be brave, be strong, and you've got this. You can do this, and it can be overcome because it's a part of you. It feels domineering and overpowering, but it's only a part of you, and you are much, much more than this thing. So, thank you for being here. Like, comment, subscribe, support, and share. Please give us a share on something. Make sure to stay engaged with what we're doing. That really helps us out, and I don't just mean that for saying it. Thank you. We're grateful for you being here. We hope that you join us next week, and take care of yourselves in between. See ya. Links in the bio.